Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. So in this video I just want to talk about a silent movie that I've just recently come across. It's new to me, perhaps it might be new to you. So how did I find it? In the news recently, Quentin Tarantino announced that he's going to be making his final film, The Film Critic, and certainly a couple of weeks ago there was a little bit of speculation that this film may be related to the film critic Pauline Kael. And now I don't know if you know Pauline Kael. For me, when I was younger in the 80s and 90s, I was familiar with Pauline Kael, but I didn't really have any of her books. She wrote film criticisms mostly for the New Yorker, but she had a number of books that were published. A friend of my brother-in-law's, he had those books, and so I was able to borrow some of those when I was much younger and read through some of them. But mostly for me, when it came to film criticisms and things like that, I just enjoyed having the shorter reviews. People like Leslie Halliwell and Leonard Maltin, and then in more recent years, things like the Radio Times film guides. So all these kind of like capsule reviews, really. But Pauline Kael definitely was a very articulate and well-spoken lady who wrote very comprehensive reviews and very opinionated reviews, and that was really the crucial thing about her, that she could have a point of view that really differed from other film critics. But the difficult thing about arguing against her was that she was just so articulate and well spoken that you kind of had to just respect her opinion whether or not you liked it or not, about what she said about the film. But anyway, so like I say, there was a bit of speculation that Quentin Tarantino's film may be based on Pauline Kael, although as I understand it, in just recent days he's clarified that actually that's not going to be the case. But nonetheless, I already went down a little bit of a rabbit hole because coincidentally Mubi were showing on their channel the documentary film What She Said, The Life and Times of Pauline Kael. So I watched that, and a very interesting documentary where you actually get to see footage of Pauline talking herself about some of her opinions, and as well as various clips of movies and what have you. So definitely an interesting movie. But interestingly, in that movie there's a moment where a younger family relation, I think it is, just sort of asks her what is her favorite film, and she answers Ménilmontant. And so I was kind of like, well, what's that? And so that got me intrigued to look that up, and I was able to find this film on YouTube and watch it. I've tried to look it up to see if it's available on a physical release. I think there's some reference to it possibly being on a Kino Lorber release, but I cannot find that. So if anybody knows if this film is on a physical release, please do drop me a message in the comments below. I'd be interested to try and find this. So like I say, the film is called Ménilmontant, and it was from 1926 and directed by a guy, Dmitry Kirsanov. And this is a really fascinating film. Bear in mind, this film, like I say, 1926, so it's before films such as Vertov's Man with a Movie Camera. It's before F.W. Murnau's Sunrise. But yeah, this is a 37-minute long film, and I'm sorry, I'm about to go into some spoilers now, so if you want to go and watch the movie, then please do that, and then come back to here possibly, because I'm now just going to go into some spoilers. I don't know if that really matters for a film that's about 100 years old, but nonetheless, if you're not familiar with it, I don't want to spoil it for you. So take a moment, go away, come back. Okay, you're still here, thanks. So yeah, this film is really fascinating. So like I say, 1926, it's a 37-minute film, and it was one of the first films to have been made without any intertitles, so no titles popping up on the screen to explain the plot or explain what's going on. When characters speak, when there's dialogue, there's nothing there to say what it is that they're saying. So this is very much a film where you kind of have to piece it together, and it's just, like I say, a really fascinating film. It starts brutally. There's a brutal murder right from the outset. Very shocking scene, opening scene, and there's no context to it. So you're trying to work out what has happened here. Why is this got such a violent opening? So yeah, really quite a shocking opening for a film of this age. And again, it sort of brings to mind kind of shots of, like in Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, where you see the close-up shot of someone who's been shot in the face or something like that. There's kind of that kind of similarity with some of these abrupt close-up shots of these people who are being murdered. So like I say, we've got this initial opening shocking scene of a brutal murder, and then we cut away to see two young girls who are sort of playing out in the forest, very playful and innocent, and just climbing trees and chasing cats and enjoying themselves. And then they come back to this village and witness what is obviously the death of their parents. A real sort of shock reaction there for them as they realise what has happened. We then get to see this funeral moment, so we realise that it is their parents because we see the graves that says Père and Mère, and there's this beautiful sort of transition shots showing both of the girls kind of side profile alternately, as they look at the graves, and they're kind of realizing their predicament, that they're now orphans, they're now on their own, they've now got to face life by themselves. Really just a sort of a beautiful moment there. Before then, the film begins to show the girls perhaps a little bit older, but walking away from the village along a long tree-lined road, and leaving to start a new life elsewhere. So they head to Paris, and immediately then we're sort of caught up with the whole hustle and bustle of Paris. We've got these really fast transitionary shots showing traffic and people's feet walking and things like that. So it's a very busy, intense atmosphere, and clearly we get the impression that the girls have managed to find jobs in a flower shop, doing flower arranging and making bouquets. And they seem initially quite happy and cheerful with this, that they're in employment and they have a bit of a Parisian lifestyle there. They're able to afford to buy nice bonnets, and they have an apartment, but the apartment, I think, is on the outskirts of Paris. And we then seem to get to this situation where the younger of the two sisters meets a guy who, it seems, turns out to be a bit of a playboy, and he kind of sweeps her off her feet, so the sisters kind of part way. We see the older sister kind of observing her younger sister meeting up with this playboy and going off with him, and she looks kind of dejected, and we see her back at the apartment that they were sharing, and she's spending the night alone in the bed with the empty side next to her where her sister used to be, and meanwhile the younger sister is with this playboy in his apartment, and there's conversations that are going on, and there's kind of a coyness about her, and a playfulness, a shyness, and a fearfulness as well. And as things progress, it then appears that he has kind of dejected her, and he is kind of a playboy, and he actually then meets her older sister and moves on to her, and the younger sister witnesses that. But not only does she witness that, but she's actually pregnant at this stage now as well. So she is then into a completely desperate state where she's dejected, she's out on her own, she's goes to this maternity ward to give birth. We just see her standing outside this maternity hospital with a baby in her arms, and just looking completely lost and dejected, and it's really gets quite emotional. You're seeing this young girl with the baby in her arms, trying to contemplate what it is that she's going to do next. And yeah, she's by herself, she's alone, she's got nobody, and so there's these really emotional scenes where we're seeing her go to the waterfront, and she's looking into the water, and beautiful flashback to her childhood where she just remembers the more innocent times of playing in the forest, and you know, playing with trees, and remembering what it's like to be in a nice comfortable house with a fireplace and running water and things like that, and she tries to sort of shake those memories away and realize where she is, and you know, contemplate what it is she's going to do next. But it's a really, you just really feel the desperation in her, and you know, clearly she's contemplating suicide, but manages to pull herself away from doing that. And then we get to probably, I guess, what must be the most classic scene in the movie. And it's an absolutely beautiful scene. You see this young girl holding her baby, sitting on a park bench. It's clearly wintry cold because you've got the cold breath coming out of her, and she just looks so forlorn, so utterly depressed. And this old gentleman sits next to her, you know, with a big bushy moustache, and he just, without really looking at her, he just begins opening up a paper in which he's got bread and meats, and just starts, you know, eating at his lunch. Meanwhile, the girl is just sitting there on the bench, you know, and you're getting these close-ups of her face, and just the expression that she has on her face is just, you won't forget it once you see it, I'm telling you. But yeah, she looks more and more desperate. She kind of is giving side looks at the old guy. The old guy is kind of aware that she's there, and without talking to her, he just breaks off a piece of bread and pushes it over her way, and she won't touch it at first, and then he breaks off a piece of, you know, salami, I think it is, and gives that to her as well. And then, you know, with tears in her eyes, she takes up this bread and meat, and you know, is eating it. And but as I say, you know, just the look you're seeing on this girl's face as all this emotion is going through her, it's just unforgettable. It's an absolutely amazing scene. And then from there we seem to move on to her then again just sort of walking the streets, you know, feeling lost, but she actually comes across witnessing her sister in this neighborhood area close to where she used to live, and her sister has now become a kind of prostitute, if you like, and she's in a desperate kind of destitute state as well, and so the two sisters reunite. The older sister sees younger sister with her young child, and there's, you know, just looks at each other of kind of, oh, you know, what has happened to us both, you know. And then whilst this is happening, the playboy witnesses both of the girls having reunited, and he is then actually set upon by another woman who has obviously been dejected by him and is in a destitute state. So she and a helper, I guess, attack the playboy, and that leads to a very sort of murderous climax as well. So yeah, this is just a really fascinating film. I really was engrossed by it. It uses loads of different kinds of transitions and superimpositions and fast cuts and dissolves to tell the story. And like I say, there's no titles here at all, so you're kind of having to piece it together. There is jumps in time, so you're trying to work out if this is all in chronological order, because clearly there's some sort of flashback moments and things like that, so you're not really explained anything. You're not really given the whys as to, you know, why she decides to step away from the water or anything. You know, what is it that's going through her mind? You're not given the detail of what discussions there are between the playboy and her, and you're not given the necessary detail between specific time frames of events happening. So yeah, it's a challenging one in that respect, to just kind of piece it all together and make sense of it. But that also makes it just a really fascinating film as well. But like I say, yeah, just the techniques that have been used in this film, with all the various types of editing and transitions and dissolves, what have you, are just really, really fascinating. And absolutely, the actress Nadia Sibirskaya plays the young sister, just incredible. I mean, I think of, you know, when was it, 1928, we had The Passion of Joan of Arc, and that film is so famous for Renee Falconetti's close-ups of her face and just how expressive that is. Now obviously that's a real landmark film. This is a much shorter film and only has you know, specific sequences that involve this young sister, but like I say, you know, it's breathtaking when you see just how she reacts to some of these challenging moments in her life. So yeah, so I just wanted to mention this film. Forgot the title already. Ménilmontant, sorry. Ménilmontant. So Ménilmontant is a suburban region of Paris, an arrondissement of Paris. So that's what that means. So yeah, okay, so Quentin Tarantino isn't making a film about Pauline Kael. I didn't need to make this discovery just because of that, but I'm glad I went down that rabbit hole and discovered this film that's completely new to me. And like I say, if I could find an actual physical copy of this that's got a good, you know, restoration, I would very much like to see that. So like I say, you can see it on YouTube. There's a couple of different uploads there at the moment, but please, if anybody is familiar with this film already and knows of a physical release, drop me a line, let me know. Okay, I've waffled a little bit there. I don't know if I've explained the full film properly, but I hope I've given it at least a little bit of a flavour. But yeah, for me, I like this kind of approach of finding films. I think it's always good to just be curious. Yeah, when there's a headline, look behind the headline and see where that might take you, and that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back with other videos on who knows what I'll be talking about next, but yeah, please do join me. Appreciate the time you've taken to watch this. Thanks very much. I'll see you again. Bye bye.